Alright, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I think collectively as gamers, when we heard about this game, we all went, what? Why? Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, this is an IP that hasn't been good in 35, 40 years. Raiders of the Lost Ark was 1981. Temple of Doom was 1984 and was a prequel to Raiders. And The Last Crusade was 1989. Now, Temple of Doom wasn't received that well, and I think it's the worst in the series as far as the original trilogy, but even Crystal Skulls, that came out in 2008, that one wasn't received that well either. That one dropped the religious supernatural artifact storyline in favor of the 1950s sci-fi alien storyline, something that Joe Rogan would beat off to vociferously with tears streaming down his face. They had people surviving nuclear holocaust in refrigerators, and most fans were unhappy with it ultimately. And then another movie came out about a year or two ago that I didn't see, apparently nobody else saw or talks about. So we have two movies in the 1980s that were considered good. Maybe Gen X and older millennials know about this IP, but it's been waning in quality for a long time, and younger millennials and Gen Z, they're not going to know what this IP is. Maybe they might have heard about it, but it's not something they're probably looking forward to or familiar with. So again, who thought this was a good idea? Apparently Machine Games thought this was a good idea. They're a Swedish game developer that's owned by ZeniMax, who owns Bethesda, who are in turn owned by Microsoft, which is why this is on Game Pass, another great Game Pass game for $12.98 with tax on PC. Machine Games is known for the newer Wolfenstein games. One came out in 2014, the first one, and the sequel, which I think was received better than the first, that came out in 2017. And there were a smattering of other Wolfenstein games in between, so this is a game developer with some pedigree. So let's break it down in the questions for casuals. But just a preface before I get to the questions, this, as usual, is my unedited, uninterrupted gameplay while I give you my opinions on the game. This game was actually difficult to do because I didn't want to give any story spoilers, and I didn't want to do any puzzle gameplay either, as that can be spoilery too. So this gameplay is going to showcase the stealth and combat mechanics, in addition to maybe some exploration stuff. Okay, so let's go get to the questions. The questions for casuals are a series of questions that us filthy, genetically inferior, low IQ casuals can ask ourselves to break down the games that we play so that we can get a better understanding of them, and we start simple. What is the best thing about this game? The best thing about a story-driven game should be the story, and the best thing about this game is the story. It is a great Indiana Jones story. It's got the religious mystical artifact hunt, it's got globe-trotting, it's got the love interest who's got her own agenda but aligns with indies, it has fascist enemies, it's got all the pieces for a great Indiana Jones story all there. It's reminiscent of an older style of storytelling for obvious reasons. It's based on a 40-year-old IP that in turn was based off of the adventure movies of the 1930s and 40s. It's a great popcorn flick style story. It's got the slapstick action sequences too. Really, they nailed the aesthetic and the style of that IP perfectly. Also, shout out to Troy Baker's performance, who is doing a dead-on Harrison Ford impression. I mean, is there anything that this guy can't do? He does a dead-on impression, and it's a great performance in addition to that. Why don't they just hire only him? Just hire Troy Baker. He could do Indiana Jones. He could do the girl. He could do the German bad guy. He could do the dogs, the cats. There's a section of the game that has a train in it. I'm sure he could do the sound effects for the train. There's nothing the guy can't do. He's like the Robert De Niro of voice actors, or if you're younger, the Timothy Chalamet or whatever his name is. All the performances are great in this game, though. What is the worst thing about this game? The worst thing about this game is that it's a slow burn. It took me, I want to say, 3 to 4 hours in order to get into this game. The game starts with the intro to the Raiders of the Lost Ark, which, believe me, my nostalgia chub was about to rip through the flyer of my jeans, so this would please older fans. And younger fans get an introduction to the character. He's this guy who runs around in leather with a fedora and a whip, which sounds like some kind of S&M sex thing, but it's not. He's not a pervert. He's an archaeologist, okay? But like I said, it's nostalgic, and then after this sequence, you get an intro to the story that you're going to embark on. It's after this part where you get to the first major area of the game, and you're like, oh, this is what this game is. Because I don't know about you, but when I first heard about this game, I thought it was going to be more along the lines of a first-person Uncharted or Tomb Raider, but it's not really that. And I'll get to that aspect in another question, but when you first get to that area and you realize what the game actually is, it then takes a couple of missions and some exploring around to get into it. I think that some players will be turned off early on, so I suggest sticking it out and giving it a chance to allow it to get the grip that a good game gets on you. But also, runner-up for the worst thing about this game is the stealth mechanics. The stealth early on feels kind of goofy. I mean, modern games and their stealth systems aren't too punishing, and us casuals, we don't really want a punishing stealth system. In these games, I'll generally stealth around till I get caught, then I loudly kill 6 or 7 people as alarms are blaring, then I run away when my health gets low and I hide in a corner until they go, I guess there's nothing to see here, and then I go back to stealth, dropping people here and there. Then the enemies find those bodies and are like, no, I guess there's still nothing to see here. And then I do that until I get caught again, and I rinse and repeat until I beat the mission. But in this game, I never use the carry a body ability, at all. They'll look at the body and search around, and they give up fairly quickly. But as the game progresses, you become accustomed to it, though I always wished I had a rock throwing ability like in Far Cry, or a whistle or a fart or something to use as a distraction. There are various weapons you can pick up and throw, but you also want to use those weapons, so overall, it never really felt right to me. It always felt like something was missing. Alright, next question. What innovations did this game introduce or popularize? I don't necessarily think this game introduced or popularized any innovations. The only thing that stuck out when I first was playing was that the objective marker would be on screen only while you had the map open, which is an option that you could turn off essentially by making the objective marker always appear on the screen. However, I thought it was neat that having the map open showed the objective marker, and it gave the game a realistic feel that bridged the gap between reality and the game by essentially gamifying having a map open. But other than that, nothing really stuck out to me as far as being like, I've never seen that before. What is the most visually impressive part of this game? The most visually impressive part of this game are the environments. This game looks incredible. Now, I don't have a beefy GP, but do yourself a favor and see videos of this game on YouTube in 4K or 8K. It looks real. I mean, you'll think you're in the jungle. You're not. You're in your living room in your underwear, but you'll think you're in the jungle. This is one of the best looking games that's come out probably ever. And that's all that needs to be said. Check it out for yourself. Which gameplay system is the most impressive in this game? No gameplay system is a standout here. You can make an argument for the hand-to-hand combat with the inclusion of the whip. That's pretty good, but this is a game where everything works extremely well in unison for the most part. The exploration, the puzzle solving, the hand-to-hand combat like I mentioned before, the stealth, The shooting doesn't feel great, which is strange as this comes from a first-person shooter developer, but the focus in this game is definitely directed towards stealth. Alerting an entire camp and then trying to shoot your way out was difficult. Perhaps with some stat increases it could have been easier, but for me, stealth seemed to be the way to go. But generally speaking, everything in the game just works and works well together. How good is the sound design and music in this game? The sound design in this game is very good. In particular, the whip sounds and the gunshots. Also, the music is classic 80s Indiana Jones music. It's got the movie theme there that plays. To me, it doesn't necessarily distinguish itself, the music, but it certainly does the job. That theme, though, man, that Indiana Jones theme, that'll get you that nostalgia chip so big it'll fucking veins coming out of it. Does this game have nonsensical mechanics and or a narrative with plot holes? As far as nonsensical mechanics, the game gives you the ability to gain extra health and extra stamina by eating food and eating fruit respectively, and the extra stamina gets reduced when you sprint. I just don't like that, and it would feel better if it just decreased in combat. I get that you can sprint longer, but it doesn't seem to be there when you need it most. Also, depending on your disguise, you get access to a weapon. So for instance, Indy's regular outfit comes with a revolver, and that revolver you can shoot or use as a melee weapon. If you use it as a melee weapon, it will break just like every other melee weapon after a certain number of hits. In the quick menu, you can't just go to your broken outfit weapon and then repair it. You have to open up your satchel by pressing the right directional and then go over to the weapon with the left directional to use a repair kit to fix it. I wish you could just go to the weapon and hit the A button and it would use a repair kit if you have one and the weapon's broken. I also would like if you could use the repair kits on the weapon that you're currently using, so before it breaks you can use a repair kit and just keep that weapon. I know they probably want you to mix it up, but if I like a current weapon I'm using, I'd like to keep it around a bit longer. As far as plot holes are concerned, with this type of storytelling and with this IP, there's going to be tons of goofy little things. This guy's fedora stays on his head throughout I don't know how many crazy situations, like he gorilla glued it to his scalp. There's one part where he meets the love interest and he just finished with this great discovery, and he stops what he's doing because he sees somebody who's dressed as a nun possibly lock-picking a door or using a key, he can't see. But it's like, hey, forget about what I was doing, let me go see what this nun is up to. There's a scene where the bad guys have them pinned in classic bad guy fashion. The guy divulges a bunch of information and talks instead of just killing them. And then when they start shooting, Indiana Jones and crew are able to hide without getting shot at all. And also in that same scene, somebody uses a stone tablet as a shield, doesn't get hit getting the tablet, and nobody thinks to shoot this guy's legs. It's like things like that, but that's par for the course. I mean, this is at its heart a popcorn flick, and you could pick at it that way, but as far as narrative plot holes that ruin the story, no. The things I mentioned prior are things that you suspend your disbelief to enjoy the story. Which section of this game is the most fun to play through? The most fun section to me was a section where you go to a country in Southeast Asia and you get to travel around there in a unique way. It was a really beautiful and interesting area, and I enjoyed the time spent there. I did a lot of the side stuff there and really felt a pull to hang around and get all of the collectibles. Good puzzles and story beats in that section as well. Which section of the game is the least fun to play through? There was a side mission where you have a dreamlike sequence, I'll put it that way, and it got really old really fast, and it wasn't immediately clear what you were supposed to do a lot of the time. I found myself banging my head against the wall through some of it, which also entailed running around in circles like a crazed meth addict, and by the time I was done, I was like, I never want to do that again. So I recommend anybody who does that mission is not having fun, just quickly look up what you have to do so that you can just get through it. It is a good story for fleshing out the main character, though. Is the amount of content provided in the game acceptable? How about in regards to the purchase price? I think that the amount of content provided is more than acceptable. Look, any way that you can play a game cheaper is probably a good way to play it because our hobby can be expensive, but there's a good amount of content here and you can really choose how much you want from this game. You can either just enjoy the story or dig into all the side missions, mysteries, and collectibles that you want. In addition, I would say that if you were really just interested in the story, buying this game for $70, that's expensive. But if you could, it would be much more worth it to get it on Game Pass. If you're looking to really dig into the game then, I think there's a decent amount of content here, and you can get 40 hours out of this. Beelining the story could take anywhere from 10 to 12 hours, I would guess. What awards could this game win at the Game Awards? Is it award-worthy? I definitely think that this game is award-worthy, especially when it comes to the narrative. Troy Baker could win an award for his performance. I don't know if it would win Best Narrative, but I think the standout at the end of the day is really Baker's performance because he sounds like Harrison Ford and he gives a great performance on top of that. It could also win Best Art Direction because it looks incredible. Basically, I could see it being nominated for any category that it's eligible for, but it did come out rather early in regards to the Game Awards cycle, so it might get overlooked if this year is packed with a lot of good shit. How does this game rank as a casual experience? This game was made for us casuals, man, let me tell you. It is a great casual experience because, like I said, you can beeline the story if you want to, even put the difficulty on easy, put the puzzles on easy, and just get the game on Game Pass for $12.98 plus tax, and you'll get 10 to 12 hours of a good story. Or you could take as much time as you want and get a nice 40-hour experience by doing everything, which also includes building up your stats through books you find or buy, then spending points you unlock by completing various tasks to get the stats that the books could provide. These points you earn are generous, and you can unlock maps to help you locate all the books and collectibles. The stat upgrades will make the game easier, but honestly, it's not a challenging game, and I didn't have too many abilities unlocked, and I was able to beat it. Also great for casuals. Indy's outfit has a second win-like ability, like in Borderlands, so that also helps. And also, completing everything unlocks a secret ending, so if you do put the time into it, you also get that. Should this game either be single player or multiplayer or have both? They most likely could come up with something for multiplayer. I didn't think The Last of Us could have multiplayer, but that game did. So they figured out how to turn that gameplay into multiplayer. But I think that this game should stay single player. It doesn't need multiplayer, and I think it's perfectly fine the way that it is. Don't mess up a good thing, right? Should this game have a prequel, sequel, or remaster? Obviously, it's too new for a remaster. Its prequel is technically Raiders of the Lost Ark, and its sequel is technically The Last Crusade as far as the story goes. I'm sure they could do another sequel set after Crusade, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this was the best Indiana Jones story since The Last Crusade. Why not just leave it alone? It doesn't need another game. Let's not add to it, because a lot of times these people want to do sequels and they poo the bed, as evidenced by the last two Indiana Jones movies. Does this game need more support, or was it supported well? It definitely needs some optimization and bug fixing. It doesn't have great AI pathing, as sometimes the enemies couldn't even reach me, as if they were stuck on something. There was a time where a gun was supposed to break. Instead, it just started vibrating violently and I couldn't do anything. It essentially froze me attack-wise and it got me killed. There are times where I was supposed to activate something and I hit the button before the character prompted me to do so, but the game wasn't ready for me to do it, and so I had to restart it. I don't know why headshots don't register sometimes. I've shot people in the face and they're fine. I've shot people in the face and they die. So it can be janky. Though as the game went on, it got better for me. And like I mentioned before, maybe some quality of life improvements when it comes to the repair kits and the breakable weapons. I'd also like to see something in regards to Egypt as far as traveling around. There is some fast travel available throughout the game, but Egypt felt really spaced at moments and not in a good way. Let me sit on a camel or something. Also, DLC is definitely in the pipeline from what I understand, and I also have heard that there are game-breaking bugs that still haven't been fixed, so it does need some more support. Has it been supported well? Maybe they should have fixed this bug earlier. They haven't, but to me personally, with my experience, it's been pretty good. There are some bugs, there are some jank, but overall, it's good. Any wild takes or pet peeves concerning this game? So here's my wild take with this game, which isn't really out there. I think when most people heard about this, they were thinking Uncharted or Tomb Raider. This game's DNA is more closely aligned to a game like Dishonored. It is an immersive sim. And that might throw some people off. It certainly threw me off, and people who followed it more closely would have known this. But in a world with Uncharted and Tomb Raider, which by the way wouldn't exist without Indiana Jones, I was expecting something that was more of an action game. It's way more of an immersive sim. And by the way, we know as gamers what that genre is, but what does that genre name mean? We have such strange labels in gaming that could apply to many games, but it's more of an immersive sim than it is an action game. There are set pieces, though they're not relatively tame compared to Uncharted. It's way less focused on shooting and more on stealth. If you told that to people and they knew that's what they were getting, they might not be turned off. As far as pet peeves are concerned, I don't like when games that let you pick up an item, but then we have to climb something, or you have to go through something, or duck under to traverse to the next area, and you drop the item. It annoys me. Let me carry it with me. That drives me nuts. I don't know if it's a technical thing, but there are times where he's literally holding something like a lighter or a torch, and he's traversing through these areas, and you're telling me I can't hold onto a hammer or a shotgun when he passes through? It's a little silly. Is this game the developer's best? Personally, I only played Wolfenstein 2014. I never played the sequel, but between that game and this game, I think this game is better. I never played Wolfenstein 2, which I believe was better received than Wolfenstein 1, but what I've played from this developer, I 100% think this is their best game. What if another developer made this game? I think Arcane could have made this game, and they're under the Bethesda banner, and therefore the Microsoft banner. Unfortunately, they own every developer now, Microsoft, but I think that if Arcane made this game, most people would be like, oh, okay, when they turn it on and start playing, they know what they're getting. It would be interesting if Naughty Dog took over. I think the original Uncharted series writer Amy Hennig would have nailed the popcorn style of the story. With Neil Druckmann and Bruce Staley, Uncharted 4 felt darker, and in turn, them writing The Great Circle could have made it a darker game. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but I think Uncharted, Amy Hennig, that Naughty Dog, Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, that would be a great style for this game to be in. What games would you recommend if you enjoyed this game? So, if you like the story of this game, I highly recommend playing the Uncharted games. The first Uncharted is kind of difficult to go back to, but Uncharted 2 is a great game. And the other Uncharted games are pretty good too. So, if you like that action adventure side of this game, I recommend trying the Uncharted series or the Tomb Raider series. But if you like the gameplay of this game, I highly recommend the Dishonored series or Prey. It really depends on what you enjoyed about this game. What is the main theme or takeaway from this game? So the main theme from a narrative perspective, and generally what all Indiana Jones movies are about, is how your obsession can affect everyone else around you and how your life can be ruined in pursuit of your own desires. So that's always a good life lesson to remember, and that's generally what this game is about narratively. That is the main takeaway from this game, and even though the ending of the game felt slightly underwhelming, that theme really resonated at the very end of the game just before the credits roll. So that's it. That's all the questions. That pretty much wraps it up. I think, as usual, the movie system has the best rating system. 1 star, it's bad. 2 stars, it's average. 3 stars, it's good. 4 stars, masterpiece. You can then add a half star to nudge it in direction. For instance, a 1.5 star game is below average and not bad due to it having at least one redeemable quality. The game rating system is out of 10. It's just too broad of a range. It's completely unnecessary. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a 3-star game. It is a good game. Everything it does, for the most part, is well done. Does it have some jank? Yeah. Is the shooting and stealth a little underwhelming? Yeah. Set pieces are a little meh compared to other games. Is the ending a little underwhelming? Sure. But it looks incredible. The story is great, as it revitalized a floundering 40-year-old IP. It's fun to explore. The hand-to-hand combat is simple but fun. And the side missions are a standout because they actually flesh out the narrative. They're not just some side activity snooze fest. So, again, if anybody's listening to this, if you like this, comment, tell me your answers to the questions, new questions, what questions you don't like, etc. And I'll catch you on the next one. It's going to be a doozy. I'll promise you that.